Hello, I'm Chris Williams from Read Comics, They're Bad For You, or if you're watching this on BitChute, the name of my BitChute channel is Comic Freak. Well, Todd McFarlane has choice words about the MCU-Sony split. And he even has a few choice words about independent comic books that are, well, incredibly good for anyone who wants to listen to them. But first, we'll be talking about how he's happy that Sony has pulled out of the Sony Disney deal because the industry more life, because apparently he sees problems with all these companies just buying, the properties from both Disney and Marvel. It seems to be oversaturating the market with things that are too similar to each other, and he says that could possibly be a bad thing it's going to probably backlash and collapse, because if everything is basically coming from the same two sources, eventually it'll just collapse. Todd McFarlane attended Fan Expo Toronto this year, appearing at a signing event, a photo op, and most importantly leading two talks on Saturday 24th and Sunday 25th. In the first panel, McFarlane spoke about his decision to become a comic book artist, the origin story of his publishing house, Image Comics, and the people that accompanied him on his 3-decade trip. It was a snapshot of an era that no longer exists. When Marvel and DC were first and foremost comic book publishers, the artwork was drawn by hand, and artists like McFarlane still had some freedom to change the design of iconic superheroes through sheer stubbornness and blatant disregard for the status quo. Much like how McFarlane changed the design of Spider-Man's mask so he had those big, wing-like eyes he has now. Or whether they switched back and forth from his classic Spider-Man eyes to his more McFarlane eyes over the years. But he did leave a mark on Spider-Man, that's for sure. The second talk was a completely different beast. In it, McFarlane spoke about the state of the comic book industry today, where most of the comic book market share is controlled by the new owners of Marvel and DC, Disney and Warner Brothers, who he noted spent tens of billions of dollars acquiring the exclusive rights to every superhero character under the sun. According to McFarlane, this wasn't always done in the smartest possible way. This sort of reminds me of back in the 90s when, because one of the reasons the comic book industry collapsed was they were just making superhero comics. There was no difference, and it just eventually collapsed because, people got tired of them. There was also the internet, as well as, cable television, as well as the fact that comic books, with so many copies of the same issues, they would never become as iconic and as rare as Superman #1 or Avengers or X-Men #1. Old rare classic comic books that are now out of print. According to McFarlane, who went over the ins and outs of the Sony MCU split, it was the avoidance of another bidding war, like the one Disney and Fox recently underwent, that prompted the Sony MCU separation over Spider-Man. You saw what happened with Spider-Man, he asked the crowd. They were trying to extract Spider-Man, right? And Sony went, no, it ain't gonna happen. Yeah, because, Disney already spent a couple of billion, $50 billion or $60 billion buying Fox, and they can't really afford another bidding war like that, or they will go out of business. According to McFarlane, this movie might be the smartest thing that Sony could have done for Peter Parker. For the co-founder of Image Comics, this is the best time that ever existed to start a career as an independent comic book author. As counterintuitive as that might seem, in a world where most of the best-selling comic books are either Marvel or DC, that's because people like differences. If you can make a superhero or a character in a different genre, like, say, the West or cyberpunk, it could do well as an independent comic. He described how the race to acquire the next hot property has become so heated that producers are now preemptively buying the rights to film comic books that have not even been written yet. The solicitation process for these books is based on a cover 3 lines that summarize the plot and a price. According to him, 90% of the time, the producers doing the buying have not read the issue. Once it hits the stands, other people in Hollywood will notice it and it will be too late. That's an understandable thing, because there will be hit properties that could be turned into movies. And these people are looking for the next thing to make that money off of. these people who are going into comics to make their script into a comic book so it eventually becomes a movie, their scripts are basically simple things and sometimes don't even have that much to them, because a lot of the time Hollywood doesn't have that much imagination, so they take a simple plot and make it into a movie, and that's how they make a lot of their money usually. But because they're so simple, they won't work as a comic book that goes for issue after issue after issue. The movies, after all, only last 2 hours. So you have a guy trying to sell a script as a comic book that it wasn't designed to be a comic book, and it won't sell. Now, if the article continues with, if you are Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, HBO, you're looking at all these movies called Avengers that are making all this money, and you want comic book stuff. They have to take a Sharpie and they have to black out those top 94 properties, because if they're not Disney or Warner Brothers, they're just not getting it. McFarlane finished his second talk with optimistic words about the future of the industry. Comic books are never going away. It's just a medium of words and pictures. That combo will never go away. What may change is the delivery mechanism, the scale, the size, the format. But there will forever be people making drawings and putting words to those drawings. Tapes, CDs, DVDs, stream, still music. Music's still going to be there. Comics still going to be there. However, the way we'll end up bringing them into our houses, that may change. That's just progress. That's the change I'm talking about. Those are some good words McFarlane has said. And yes, he is right. There will always be people putting words to pictures they've drawn, because it's such a simple and good format that's easy to make, and people love it. I mean, they've been doing this ever since cave paintings are similar to comic books in that they're drawings, and usually someone would just narrate it with their own words. But Todd McFarlane is right. Comics will never go away. Music will never go away, because people will just make it. They don't need degrees or anything like that to make it. They learn how to do it, and they make it on their own. And I have to say, that's one of the things that pretty much, is opposite to corporate America. We don't need a bunch of people all making one thing to try and sell it to one people. You can take one guy making one comic book, and he'll make enough money to survive on and become rich. And I have to say, that's the American spirit. And I have to say, I can't wait to see the new crop of artists, and as well as other people looking at my own work, that'll come out of this new industry that is going to be born. The age of the independent comic book artist has come again. As I said, it was born really in the 60s, and then it was reborn in the 90s, and it's going to be reborn again right now. But we'll have to wait to see what new properties will be created and what we'll be reading in the future. And stick around for my own independent comic book, Scumdogs. And hearing someone like these top artists and writers saying that the place to be in comic books is in independence, I can see what Todd McFarlane's saying. All these people are going and making their own properties, and these are really good reads. From what I've seen from guys like Ethan Van Sciver and Zach at Comics Matter with your boy Zach, their properties have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's a lot of money for anyone. And all you have to do is do something you love and enjoy with all your heart. And I have to say, this is good. We're going to see such a great crop of new creators come in that we're going to be reading great stories for years. I can't wait to see people read my own book. I can't wait to read people's other books that they come up with. And that means we have to keep pushing back the SJWs, otherwise they'll do, they already have done to mainstream comics what, Rian Johnson did to Star Wars. So we got to fight back and produce our own properties that in an industry that we truly love, so we can all, live the lives we've always wanted to, because I've always wanted to be a comic book artist. And I refuse to let them keep doing what they're doing in Star Wars keep happening in comics. So it's a war, and we're going to win it. If you like this video, subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed, because YouTube is going around unsubscribing people. So make sure you are still subscribed. If you're watching my videos but you have not subscribed, please subscribe to me. Subscribe to me at YouTube at Read Comics They're Bad For You. Then go over to BitChute and subscribe to my BitChute channel, Comic Freak. Hit that bell for notifications, hit that like button, and leave some comments down below. And also, could you please share this video, share it on Twitter, and share it on Facebook? Because YouTube is also not promoting their creators' videos anymore. It would really help me if you could please share this video and show YouTube that they can't keep treating their creators like this. Oh, I'm going to plug my independent comic book one more time. Keep checking back in future videos for more information on my own upcoming independent comic book, Scumdogs. I'm Chris Williams, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another video or review.